Picture a woman in Shanghai standing in a pharmacy aisle, holding two nearly identical jars of face cream. She doesn't open Google. She doesn't open Baidu, the search engine that has owned this country for 20 years. She opens an app called Xiaohongshu. You may know it in the West as Red Note or Little Red Book, and she reads what a stranger wrote after actually using the thing. That stranger sells her the cream, not an ad, not the brand. A person she has never met and has decided to trust. Here's the part that should stop you. The American company that spent the better part of 5 years trying to build exactly this, search that ends in a purchase, driven by people you trust, walked away from it. In 2023, Instagram quietly tore the shopping storefront out of its own app and went back to selling ads. The Chinese app that finished the job is now filing to go public in 2026. The number investors are chasing is more than $70 billion, bigger than Snap and Pinterest combined, and the app is processing around 600 million searches every single day. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Instagram couldn't make this work, what Xiaohongshu figured out that Silicon Valley couldn't, and the twist almost nobody outside China has noticed, which is that this isn't really a social network at all. If you're the kind of person who finds it strange that a face cream review is worth $70 billion, you're going to like where this goes, so hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this kind of deep dive reach more people. And subscribe, because we follow these China versus the West business stories as they break, and you don't want to miss the next one. These videos take real time to research and put together, reading filings, cross-checking numbers, throwing out the claims that don't hold up. Stick with me, because by the end you'll understand 3 things. Why the trillion-dollar promise of social shopping broke Instagram's ambitions. Why a company most Westerners can't even name is worth more than Snap and Pinterest combined. And why the smartest thing Xiaohongshu ever built is the one thing Google, Amazon, and Instagram simply cannot copy. That last one is the whole game. Let's get into it. Act 1. The future. Everyone was promised. For about a decade, there was a phrase that made investors lean forward in their chairs. Social commerce. The idea was simple, and it sounded inevitable. You're already scrolling, you already follow people you like. So why should buying be a separate act? Why leave the feed, open a different app, hunt through a store? Just tap the thing in the photo and buy it. The scroll and the checkout fused into one motion. The consultancy, Accenture, put a number on the dream. They projected the global social commerce market would reach $1.2 trillion by 2025, up from under $500 billion in 2021, more than double in 4 years. Everyone wanted a piece of a trillion-dollar tap, and the company best positioned to own it, the obvious winner, was Instagram. Think about what Instagram already had. Over 1 billion users. A feed built entirely on desire, beautiful objects, beautiful lives, beautiful people holding things you didn't know you wanted. If any platform on earth could turn scrolling into shopping, it was the one where you already went to covet. So Instagram built the machine. In 2020, it added a dedicated shop tab, right there in the navigation bar at the bottom of the screen, the same real estate as your home feed. It rolled out product tags, so any creator could turn a photo into a storefront. It launched live shopping, where you could watch someone demonstrate a product and buy it midstream, the American version of a phenomenon that was already enormous in Asia. In China, platforms like Douyin, which is TikTok's domestic twin owned by ByteDance, had already turned live commerce into a multi-$100 billion industry. Instagram even added in-chat payments. Meta poured its weight behind it. This was supposed to be the next act. And then, and this is the part that got almost no coverage in the West, it all came apart. In September of 2022, according to reporting by The Information, Meta told Instagram staff internally that it was scaling back shopping features. The company had looked at the numbers and concluded the thing wasn't working. Then it moved fast. In January of 2023, Instagram announced it was removing the shop tab from the navigation bar entirely, the prime piece of screen handed back to a simple create button. By February, it was gone. And on March 16th, 2023, Instagram shut down live shopping altogether. The trade press didn't soften it. The finance outlet PYMNTS ran the line that Instagram's retreat from shopping was shaking social commerce to its core. Marketing Dive called it exactly what it was: a retreat. Now, I want to be precise here because the difference matters, and it's where a lot of lazy versions of this story go wrong. Instagram did not abandon shopping completely. You can still buy things in the feed, in stories, in reels, inside ads. What Instagram killed was shopping as a destination. The idea that you would open the app specifically to browse and buy, the way you open Amazon. That specific bet, the one that was supposed to be worth a slice of $1 trillion, is the one they walked away from. Why? Follow the money. Advertising is more than 98% of Meta's revenue. When 2 straight quarters of revenue decline hit in 2022, Meta did the rational thing and retreated to the business it actually knew how to print money in: ads. Shopping was a promising side quest. Ads were the kingdom, so the future everyone was promised. The feed that becomes a store quietly died in California. Here's the thing, nobody in that room seemed to notice. 8,000 kilometers away, a company was building the exact same future, and it was working. Act 2, the thing Silicon Valley couldn't buy. Let me tell you about the man who started it, because his origin story tells you everything about why this worked. His name is Mao Wenchao, in English, Charwin Mao. And on paper, he is the last person you'd expect to out-execute Instagram. Picture the resume for a second. Engineering degree from Shanghai Jiao Tong University, consultant at Bain, the blue-chip American consulting firm, private equity, then Stanford for an MBA, which means he was dropped straight into the middle of Silicon Valley at the exact moment it believed it could eat the world. He was, by his own telling, an obsessive traveler, someone who'd been to more than 20 countries before he turned 30. Everything about that profile tells you he should have come home and built another Silicon Valley clone. Instead, he built the opposite. And the idea that became a $70 billion company came from the most ordinary problem you can imagine. The story the company tells is this: Mao's parents were planning a trip abroad, and he went looking for a simple, honest guide on what to actually buy. Not brand pages, not advertisements, but real advice from real people who'd been there. And he couldn't find one. The information existed, scattered in 1,000 heads, but nobody had gathered it in a place you could trust. So in 2013, Mao and his co-founder, Miranda Koo, built it. And I want you to hold on to how small this started, because it started as almost nothing. A downloadable PDF, an overseas shopping guide for Chinese tourists. That's the seed of a $70 billion company, not a feed, a guide. And then something happened that Mao said surprised even him. Users didn't just read the guides, they wrote their own. Unprompted, they started posting what they bought, what was worth it, what wasn't, with photos, with detail, with the specific honesty of someone who spent their own money and has opinions. The company barely had to do anything. Its editor's main job in the early days was just deciding which posts to feature. They had stumbled onto something the entire American tech industry would spend the next decade failing to manufacture. There's a word for it in Chinese, Chongchao, Zhongchao, and it's the key to this entire video. It translates literally as planting grass. What it means is planting the desire to buy. You read a stranger's honest post about a suitcase or a restaurant or a stroller, and the want takes root in you. Not because a brand shouted at you, because a person you decided to trust told you a true thing. In the marketing world, you'd call this KOC, Key Opinion Consumer, as distinct from a KOL, a Key Opinion Leader, which is just a polished influencer. The Zhongchao engine runs on KOCs, regular people, not celebrities. That is the difference. And it's why Instagram lost. Instagram had the format. It had the beautiful photos, the tap to buy, the influencers. What it didn't have, what it could not buy at any price, was trust. Instagram is a place you go to perform your best life. Everyone knows the photos are staged, the bodies are filtered, the vacations are sponsored. So when Instagram put a buy button on that content, users' instincts recoiled. There's a real quote from a user, back when Instagram first pushed shopping, asking essentially, at what point did we decide Instagram is where I go to shop? The distrust was the whole problem. You cannot bolt authenticity onto a platform built for performance. Xiaohongshu ran the other way. It grew up as a place where the entire value was the honesty, where a post that reads like an ad gets rejected by the community on site. And so the buy impulse there doesn't feel like being sold to. It feels like taking a friend's advice. Watch how big that got. Today, the platform pulls in over 400 million people a month. For most of its life, it was overwhelmingly a women's platform, by some counts around 70% female, young, concentrated in China's big cities, the exact demographic every consumer brand on earth is desperate to reach. That's now shifting, deliberately. The company spent heavily to grab World Cup broadcast rights, and on the opening day, more than 60% of the live viewers were men. They're breaking out of the box on purpose. And there's one more piece of evidence for just how much the platform's cultural reach has grown. In January of 2025, when the TikTok ban loomed in the United States, millions of Americans, the so-called TikTok refugees, migrated to Xiaohongshu practically overnight. Red Note briefly became the #1 downloaded app in the US App Store. Think about what that means. A Chinese app that most Westerners couldn't name suddenly had American teenagers flooding in, not because of an ad campaign, but because it was the most credible alternative. The trust signal traveled across a language barrier. Now, if the story ended right here, a more honest Instagram that got enormous, it would already be worth 25 minutes of your time. But it doesn't end here. Because everything I've just walked you through, the trust, the community, the 400 million people, that was never the point. It was the raw material, the foundation for something else entirely, something that turns this from a nice app into a genuine threat to one of the biggest companies in China. Up to now, you've been picturing a social network. Watch how fast that picture falls apart. Act 3, the twist. It was never a social network. Go back to that woman in the pharmacy aisle holding 2 jars of cream. What did she actually do? She didn't scroll a feed and stumble onto a recommendation. She had a specific question, which cream? And she went to Xiaohongshu to look it up. She used it the way you use Google. And she is not unusual. Here's what the company's own executives have said. Roughly 70% of Xiaohongshu's monthly users engage in search. Not scrolling, searching, typing a question and hunting for an answer. And about 1 in 3 users, the moment they open the app, go straight to the search bar as their very first action, before the feed, before anything. Now, hold on to this figure because it's the one that should make Baidu's executives sweat. By the end of 2024, Xiaohongshu was processing around 600 million searches every single day. According to the industry reporting on it, figures later cited by the open source research group Bellingcat, that put it at roughly half the search volume of Baidu itself. Let me make sure that lands. Baidu is China's Google. It has been the country's default search engine for 20 years. A genuine monopoly, the place 1 billion people went for every question. And a lifestyle app that started as a downloadable shopping guide is now doing half its daily search volume and climbing. Compare that to WeChat, Tencent's super app, the platform that handles messaging, payments, and mini programs for over 1 billion people. And even WeChat's search function hasn't carved out this kind of intent-driven query volume in the shopping discovery space. Xiaohongshu landed in a gap that neither Baidu nor WeChat fully owned. Why is that happening? Because for a huge and growing category of question, Baidu gives you the wrong kind of answer. Ask Baidu about a stroller and you get brand websites, search-optimized filler, pages engineered to rank. Ask Xiaohongshu the same thing and you get 40 real parents telling you which one folds with one hand and which one broke in 6 months. For should I buy this, eat here, go there, the questions that actually end in you spending money, the honest human answer beats the optimized web page every time. That's the twist this whole video has been walking toward. Xiaohongshu is not a social network with a shopping feature. It is a search engine indexed not on the open web, but on lived human experience. And that makes it something none of the giants can replicate. Google has the search, but not the trusting community. Instagram has the format, but not the honesty. Amazon has the transaction, but not the content people believe. Even Pinduoduo, the social group buying giant that rewrote Chinese e-commerce on price discovery, doesn't have the trusted content layer that turns a search into a genuine recommendation. Xiaohongshu quietly assembled all four: search, community, content, and commerce into one loop. You come in with a question, you get a human answer you trust, and the answer ends in a purchase. That is the most valuable machine on the internet. It's why the commercial signal here isn't advertising anymore. It's recommendation. Which brings us to the money. As of 2026, Xiaohongshu is preparing to go public in Hong Kong. And according to the Wall Street Journal, the major investors circling the deal are pushing for a valuation above $70 billion, up from around $50 billion in private trades just a year earlier, and up from as little as $17 billion back in 2024. $70 billion. For comparison, that's larger than Snap and Pinterest, two Western social platforms Americans actually know, combined. And the wild part is the numbers arguably justify it. The company's net profit is reported to have topped $2 billion, and analysts project it could exceed $3 billion in 2026. At $70 billion, that's a price of roughly 23 times earnings. The kind of multiple you pay for a business, people believe is still early in its growth, not a fading social app. Most of that money comes from advertising, the same business Instagram retreated to, except here the ads work because the platform is trusted, instead of in spite of it. And the brand of this channel is that we don't hand you the clean fairy tale. The story going into that public listing is not spotless. In July of 2026, as the company entered its final stretch before listing, a former employee went public with allegations. The whistleblower claimed there were discrepancies in how the company disclosed its corporate structure, the complex legal shell called a VIE, or variable interest entity, that Chinese tech firms use to take foreign money, and alleged the company had timed layoffs to avoid paying out employees' stock options before they vested. Xiaohongshu is also carrying the same regulatory weight every Chinese tech company carries. Before it can list, Beijing's securities regulator, the CSRC, the China Securities Regulatory Commission, has to bless the deal, and the ghost of 2021 hangs over the whole thing. That was the year Xiaohongshu first tried to go public in the United States, and Chinese regulators killed it over data security and offshore listing fears. So this is not a story of a flawless machine gliding to a $70 billion finish. It's a story of a company that solved the one problem Silicon Valley couldn't, and now has to prove it can survive its own success, its own governance, and its own government, all at once. So step back and look at what actually happened here. The West decided the future was the feed that becomes a store. Instagram, the company best equipped on earth to build it, poured years into it and quit because it could not manufacture the one ingredient that makes it work: trust. And a company most of you had never heard of before this video, Xiaohongshu, Rednote, Little Red Book, whatever name you search, built that exact future on that exact missing ingredient and turned a downloadable shopping guide into a $70 billion search engine that is quietly eating a 20-year monopoly. Which leaves one uncomfortable question hanging over everything. The most valuable signal on the internet used to be the ad, the thing you could buy your way in front of. It is turning into the recommendation, the honest word of a person you trust, which no one can buy at any price. If that's true, then the entire model that Google and Meta were built on is standing on ground that's starting to move. How long does the ad-driven internet have left? I genuinely want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments, and I read every single one. And if this rewired how you see it, wait until you see the next one. Because Xiaohongshu is not the only Chinese company that quietly took a business off a Western giant. Sony, a name everyone watching this grew up with, handed its entire television business to a Chinese company and walked away calling it a win. Whether that was a surrender or the single smartest move Sony ever made is its own story, and it's already on the channel. Go watch it.